There's really almost nothing to say about this football game today. Um, it's not over yet, but it's such a blowout that, hey, let's go ahead and make the video. Just a fucking disaster of a game. And team-wide disaster, complete. I mean, fucking defense was run over. I mean, more passed over than run over, but, they really didn't do anything. Offense, awful. Game plan, awful. It's like they're a 1-5 football team. They're going to be 1-6 after, they got the bye and then Green Bay, so they'll be 1-6. You are what you are at that point, but this is a schizophrenic football team because I don't know how can you say this is. I know it's a week-to-week league, but how can the same football team that they lost, but they played so well and so hard last week in Seattle, then come out at home, granted in front of no fans, but it's still a home game, against a winless team, and just throw up easily one of the 2 or 3 worst performances they've ever given in the Zimri era. I mean, this is up there with that Buffalo game and that Colts game from 2016 and maybe a couple others, but I mean, it's just a disaster. It's inexplainable. What bothers me is how they can be so inconsistent that way. Like, I mean, they weren't even this bad against the Packers. They weren't even this bad, maybe against the Colts, but I mean, this is obviously not a playoff team. I mean, they weren't. I really harbored no hope for playoff. If maybe they'd eked out that one last week, they would still have a chance. But then if they came out this week and did this, it wouldn't have mattered. But man, like, this is just this is pathetic today. There's not one good thing you can take from this game. Maybe, Irv Smith had a couple nice catches. Jefferson looked all right. But what can you say? I mean, just awful. Just like, I'm always going to be a Cousins apologist to a degree, because I never believed he was anything that he wasn't. I always thought, okay, this guy is at his best, he's like a top 10-ish quarterback, and you can win with a top 10-ish quarterback. There are teams that have won Super Bowls with quarterbacks who are not top 10 quarterbacks. But this was a fucking pathetic game for him, and he had no Dalvin Cook, and Atlanta clearly had no respect for any concept of a Vikings running game with just Alexander Mattison and Mike Boone, because they just destroyed the run the entire game. I don't know what the stats are for the run, but I mean, did they even have 50 yards? I mean, granted, they've been down like multiple scores the whole game, but I don't know what. It goes back to, not just the talent on the field, but the coaching. Like, you're not going to have Dalvin Cook. You pretty much knew you weren't going to have Dalvin Cook going back to last week when he got hurt. Oh, and look at that. Just as I'm doing this, they give up a wide open pass for like a 30-yard touchdown. They can't even stop the embarrassment long enough for me to make a video. That's like that's the second long touchdown pass they've given up on a 4th down today. Everything's bad. But the running game thing, like, you're not going to have Dalvin Cook for the whole week. So what was the game plan? Like, bash Alexander Mattison straight into the line every run? Like, where's the creativity? I thought we were past this, is the thing. Like, they're not a playoff team, but I thought they were showing improvement from week to week. Like, they were awful the first 2 weeks, but then they were pretty good against the Titans, lost. Pretty good against the Texans, and very good against Seattle. They just didn't seal the deal. And now they go out and just set fire to all that progress they made, because now they haven't made any progress, because now they're just as bad today as they were in weeks 1 and 2 against an even worse team. So what can you even say? You can't even really come out and say, oh, they're at least they're improving. Well, maybe they're not improving, because now they got they've gotten a 40 burger dropped on them by a winless team on their home field. But I mean, Cousins awful. I mean, they made the big switch because Samia was out. They put Ezra Cleveland in there. I don't know. I can't tell if he was better or not. Like it doesn't matter. How can you tell? I mean, it was another one of these things where they didn't have the fucking football. They're getting they're getting 3 and outs. They're getting quick turnovers. They're not having any drives, so you can't even tell if anyone's good, if Cleveland is good or Samia. But like receivers not getting open. There were a couple times early, especially where Cousins had some time to throw, and there's just nowhere to throw. Receivers aren't getting open because all Atlanta does is they're dropping everybody back because they don't think we have a running game if Dalvin Cook ain't out there. And I guess they're right because Madison ran for 100 yards last week and barely a half, and I don't know what he's got today, maybe 30 yards, just nothing. Just a terrible game from him. Terrible game from the line. I mean, Cousins has been sacked a couple times. It hasn't been one of those. I don't think this is really an offensive line thing. Just Cousins was shit today. I mean, I'm sorry he was, and he's still my guy, but I still think he is what he is. He's a pretty good quarterback who, more often than not is going to play well for you. He ain't played well today. And I mean, the numbers are adding up at this point. I don't know what he's up to now for the season. I think he's got he might have double-digit interceptions now after just 6 games. And starting quarterbacks don't throw for that many interceptions in today's NFL. That was something from not even the Favre era. Favre was the last guy who would throw picks, and you'd be like, well, it's going to happen. It really doesn't happen anymore. And these are bad picks. These are really bad interceptions from Cousins today. Very rookie shit. And I can't defend Cousins on this one at all because even the fact that Atlanta's put up points. I mean, they were going to put up points. They're still a good offense, even though they were a winless team. But they're not a team the Vikings are not a team this year at all that can have the offense just break down like this and you have a chance to win. You just can't do it. And I'm not the guy who rips Cousins after every loss. That's because that's just not the way it is. But this is 6 games, and 2 of them are really bad, really, really bad Cousins games. This one and the Colts game. He was terrible in those games. And, I mean, he's made mistakes in all the games. You're not going to do anything about it. I mean, you're not going to bench Kirk Cousins because he's still your best quarterback by far. And this isn't going to be a playoff season. They're not going to have a chance at that. But I don't know what really would be even gained by sitting Cousins. Maybe over the bye week they can kind of settle and get stuff figured out a little bit more. But of course, I already thought they were figuring stuff out. They had improved. They looked like a very solid football team at worst last week against Seattle. And to come out and just throw up this garbage performance, I just maybe you lose. There was definitely a concern that maybe there'd be a spark for Atlanta because they fired their coach, and teams tend to kind of have a spark the next week. But I mean, so if you lose a game, well, maybe that can happen. But don't go out and give this kind of fucking performance. I don't know if it's an effort thing or just game planning. It didn't felt like one of those games like sometimes you get where you're getting blown out and you just quit. I didn't get that sense from this game. But I think it's just terrible performances by everybody. Just terrible execution, terrible performance. I don't know. I just, and the defense again, just they were awful. I thought the defense was making improvements. They gave up the touchdown at the end of the Sunday night game to Seattle. Okay, but like that can happen. And I'm not saying like it's not shameful to give up points to Jefferson touchdown. Jefferson's a positive. Jefferson is definitely Jefferson would definitely be the positive for the game for the Vikings. So, well, good for Jefferson. So, the score's going to look a little more respectable than it really was. You know, pending PAT 40-21, but it ain't a 40-21 game. This has been every bit as bad as that Buffalo game or the Colts game, those games I mentioned. But yeah, the defense just, I felt they were making improvements, and they really went the other way now today. Like, it was very non-competitive stuff in the pass defense, and they got the 2. So hey, we only need 2 touchdowns and a field goal in a minute and a half. We can do this, guys. But I mean, and they made a couple plays on defense, like they got a turnover again, but they got 1 or 2 sacks, but just you give up 40 points, you can't say you played good on defense. You just can't. And there were a couple, obviously the turnovers contributed to that, but it wasn't just the turnovers. So I don't know, man. Defense went the other way, and that would be the scary part, because look, I'm not at all in favor of making any sort of coaching changes or firings. I'm not. One way or another, I think everyone knew there was going to be some level of rebuilding this year, that it wasn't going to be, a great season in terms of, they weren't going to the Super Bowl. Even I'm the biggest optimist in the world, and I only had them going 9-7 and sneaking into the playoffs. But yeah, it's just, this is the kind of game, though, with the timing, because they're going into a bye week. This is the kind of timing, if they were to make a change, this is kind of the timing that teams make changes. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. I think Zimmer has earned the right to see his way through this year. And look, if we get to if we get into December and they're still getting 40 dropped on them by teams that are not very good, because they've got on paper, a lot of winnable games the rest of the way. Of course, we thought this was a very winnable game. If we get in December and this is still going on, I mean, there might be a strong case to move on from Zimmer. Even then, I don't think I would really be in favor of it, but these are the kind of games and performances that do get coaches fired. And they fired the 2 coaches that have been fired, Quinn and O'Brien. They got fired after fairly close losses. This is a really bad one. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Wolves are gonna. I don't think we're going to see tomorrow a press release saying that Mike Zimmer has been fired and Gary Kubiak is the new head coach or something like that. But the odds are higher than they were 3 hours ago. And as they've kneeling the clock out, running it out now. So 40-23 is the final. I don't know, man. The inconsistency and to have a performance like this is really discouraging, and I hope that. I don't think it speaks well of the coaching staff. I mean, just to have a game like this, and so I don't know. We'll see. I don't think there's going to be a change, but I wouldn't totally rule it out. But a terrible performance today, and almost nothing good to take from it other than Jefferson. So, guess we'll see you in 2 weeks.